Welcome to View from the Top, and I thank you for joining us. My name is Modele Sharafa Yusuf, and I'm truly honored to have sitting across from me the first Nigerian to be CEO of a quoted multinational company in the manufacturing sector, Dr. Michael Omolayole. Thank you for joining us, sir. A true pioneer, Dr. Michael Omolayole was CEO of Liver Brothers Nigeria, where he worked for about 27 years, the last 10 years as its chairman and managing director. Even though he retired 30 years ago, he's still highly regarded in business circles. And today, we'll be discussing, among other things, the seeming extinction of the Nigerian CEO. Before we launch into our conversation, here is a brief biography. Born in 1928, Dr. Omolayole was one of the 104 pioneer students of the University of Ibadan in 1948. He later attended the Corpus Christi College, Oxford University, for a postgraduate course in education, and the Harvard Business School for the Advanced Management Program. After retiring as managing director of Liver Brothers, he set up Omolayole and Associates Management Consultants Limited in November 1984. He has served on the boards of several companies, including UAC of Nigeria, National Bank of Nigeria, CAP PLC, Nestle PLC, and ICO Insurance. He has also served on the governing council or senate of several institutions, including the University of Ife, Ahmadu Bello University, University of Ibadan, University of Lagos, Olabisi Onabanjo University, and the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies. So you have expressed worries about the fact that there are currently very few Nigerian CEOs held in the multinationals. What do you think is responsible for this seeming reversal of the gains made after the indigenization policy of the 1970s, when that led to the emergence of people like you, Dr. Abebe, Dr. Christopher Kolade, and so forth?
I became curious myself. I wasn't expecting this is where we're going to be now. Considering the fact that in the manufacturing industry, there was no Nigerian CEO until my time. I had hoped that all the gains we made between early 70s and 2000 will continue to go on and on like that. Well, that is a normal expectation. Let me address the decline in the manufacturing sector itself. From the 90s, the state of electricity supply had become really terrible. And it was difficult for manufacturing companies to survive without having to become generators of electricity on their own. They were principally there to manufacture their product. And in most of the countries, other countries that are competing with Nigeria would produce the utilities in such a manner that the manufacturer will just tap into the utilities. And so we had the problem having to do with capacity utilization as a result of poor electricity supply, very epileptic. And I'm greatly worried about that. So you then get a situation where even whatever capacity was there was underutilized. The capacity utilization was hardly up to 50% on the whole. Then you get a situation where the contribution of manufacturing to GDP as a percentage was dwindling. Now, on top of all of that, you then have a situation where even the human capacity development assessed by the number of Nigerians who got to the very top didn't quite measure up as far as I was concerned. If the human capacity development was that good and active, even if one fellow failed, the failure of one single Nigerian is not a failure of all Nigerians. And the employers ought to be up and doing, looking for bright people as well as virtuous people. I mean, that's been my worry.
You were a product of a well-orchestrated executive development program by Unilever, which exposed you to management training and hands-on experience, both locally and internationally. Why aren't Nigerian companies investing more in their people?
Well, again, it's short-sightedness. Most businesses should be in business for the long haul, not for an instant gain, instant gratification. Everybody knows that people are the greatest asset of any organization, any business. People are the greatest asset. People can develop the business, they also can develop. All other resources cannot by themselves develop. Money cannot develop itself unless it's put to use by human beings. So whichever organization really wants to do well and to be there for a long, long time should focus on human development.
Do you reckon that this problem could be tied to the general decay in the Nigerian society and issues such as corruption?
Well, it's not unlikely, and I have to say this. There's nobody in business who wouldn't occasionally be faced with the issues of gratification and issues of bribery and corruption. But the bigger the organization, the bigger is can be the determination to ride over that. Small people sometimes they succumb to the pressure.
So how does the corporation working in a country where there has been a collapse of values like in Nigeria help to make a difference with the transference of their corporate culture?
The corporate culture set from what I may call the metropolitan headquarters, the global headquarters, must be such that there's no separate value for a country where corruption is rife. Because the moment you make an exception, then you are telling those who are managing in that country that you can be crooked. So you've got to make no exception. The global company must make no exception as far as the standard is concerned. And once they are firm about that, then the corrupt influences with those countries sooner or later will know that we're dealing with people you cannot bend. And no matter what you do, for as long as you want them here, you have to play the game straight. And it isn't that we don't get what I may call a body language, that you've got to behave like everybody else behaves. And we say, sorry, we're not going to do that. And for as long as we are protected and defended by the global company, to that extent, you can stand against, in spite of all that is said about this country, there are still oases in the desert. There are virtuous people, and that's my belief, that they may be few and far between. It may be like looking for a needle in a haystack, but there are some virtuous people. And because of the existence of those virtuous people, the global companies must go looking for them. It may require a lot of persistence and belief in the country, but there are oases within the desert.
One corporate governance principle that doesn't seem to receive a lot of attention is the concept of disclosures. How important is this in efforts to enhance corporate transparency and accountability, and of course restore investors' confidence?
Disclosure starts with what I call the principles of transparency, openness, and accountability. Now, those principles belong to what I may call the best practices in the world, global best practices. It was what I roughly said, doing everything on top of the table. If you did everything on top of the table, everybody saw what is on top of the table. If you do some things under the table, only your hands would know what is going on. Even your eyes wouldn't know. let alone the eyes of anybody else. So transparency is important because one thing that had happened in the world since, I think, before the Second World War, there's something I call managerial revolution. The separation of management from ownership. At the beginning of industrialization, beginning of businesses, most owners of the business managed the business because they were small businesses. As they grew bigger and bigger, they could no longer manage